Alice in Chains is an American rock band formed in Seattle, Washington, in 1987 by guitarist and songwriter Jerry Cantrell and original lead vocalist Layne Staley. The initial lineup was rounded out by drummer Sean Kinney and bassist Mike Starr, who was replaced in 1993 by Mike Inez. Although widely associated with grunge music, the band's sound incorporates heavy metal and acoustic elements. Since its formation, Alice in Chains has released 5 studio albums, 3 EPs, 2 live albums, 4 compilations, and 2 DVDs. The band is known for its distinctive vocal style, which often included the harmonized vocals of Staley and Cantrell. Alice in Chains rose to international fame as part of the grunge movement of the early 1990s, along with other Seattle bands such as Nirvana, Pearl Jam, and Soundgarden. The band was one of the most successful music acts of the 1990s, selling over 20 million albums worldwide, and over 14 million in the US alone. In 1992, the band released their album Dirt, which was critically acclaimed and has been certified quadruple platinum. The band also achieved 2 #1 Billboard 200 releases, 14 top 10 songs on the mainstream rock tracks chart, and 8 Grammy Award nominations. Although never officially disbanding, Alice in Chains was plagued by extended inactivity from 1996 onwards due to Staley's substance abuse, which resulted in his death in 2002. The band reunited in 2005 with new lead vocalist William Duvall and released their 4th studio album, Black Gives Way to Blue, in 2009. The album was a success, receiving gold certification by the RIAA in 2010. Alice in Chains released their 5th studio album, The Devil Put Dinosaurs Here, on May 28, 2013, and are currently on tour for this album. History, formation and early years. Before the formation of Alice in Chains, then drummer Layne Staley landed his first gig as a vocalist when he auditioned to sing for a local glam metal band known as Slays after receiving some encouragement from his stepbrother Ken Elmer. Other members of this group at that time were guitarists Johnny Bacolas and Zoli Seminate, drummer James Bergstrom, and bassist Byron Hansen. This band went through several lineup changes culminating with Nick Pollock as their sole guitarist and Bacolas switching to bass before discussions arose about changing their name to Alice in Chains. This was prompted by a conversation that Bacolas had with a singer from another band about backstage passes. Due to concerns over the reference to female bondage, the group ultimately chose to spell it differently as Alice in Chains to allay any parental concerns, though Staley's mother Nancy McCallum has said she was still not happy with this name at first. Staley met guitarist Jerry Cantrell while working with Alice in Chains at Music Bank rehearsal studios. The two struggling musicians became roommates, living in a rehearsal space they shared. Alice in Chains soon disbanded, and Staley joined a funk band that also required a guitarist at the time. Staley asked Cantrell to join as a sideman. Cantrell agreed on condition that Staley join Cantrell's band, which at the time included drummer Sean Kinney and bassist Mike Starr. Eventually the funk project broke up, and in 1987 Staley joined Cantrell's band on a full-time basis, playing in clubs around the Pacific Northwest, often stretching 15 minutes of material into a 45-minute set. The band played a couple of gigs, calling themselves different monikers, including Diamond Lie, the name of Cantrell's previous band, before eventually adopting the name that Staley's previous band had initially flirted with, Alice in Chains. Local promoter Randy Houser became aware of the band at a concert and offered to pay for demo recordings. However, one day before the band was due to record at the Music Bank studio in Washington, police shut down the studio during the biggest cannabis raid in the history of the state. The final demo, completed in 1988, was named The Treehouse Tapes and found its way to the music managers Kelly Curtis and Susan Silver, who also managed the Seattle-based band Soundgarden. Curtis and Silver passed the demo on to Columbia Records and a representative Nick Tutso, who set up an appointment with label president Don Ienner. Based on the Treehouse Tapes, Ienner signed Alice in Chains to Columbia in 1989. The band also recorded another untitled demo over a 3-month period in 1989. This recording can be found on the bootleg release Sweet Alice. Facelift and Sap, Alice in Chains soon became a top priority of the label, which released the band's first official recording in July 1990, a promotional EP called We Die Young. The EP's lead single, We Die Young, became a hit on metal radio. After its success, the label rushed Alice in Chains' debut album into production with producer Dave Jerden. Cantrell stated the album was intended to have a moody aura that was a direct result of the brooding atmosphere and feel of Seattle. The resulting album, Facelift, was released on August 21, 1990, peaking at number 42 in the summer of 1991 on the Billboard 200 chart. Facelift was not an instant success, selling under 40,000 copies in the first 6 months of release, until MTV added Man in the Box to regular daytime rotation. The single hit number 18 on the mainstream rock charts, with the album's follow-up single, Sea of Sorrow, reaching number 27, and in 6 weeks Facelift sold 400,000 copies in the US. The album was a critical success, with Steve Huey of Allmusic citing Facelift as one of the most important records in establishing an audience for grunge and alternative rock among hard rock and heavy metal listeners. Facelift was certified gold by the Recording Industry Association of America by the end of 1990, while the band continued to hone its audience, opening for such artists as Iggy Pop, Van Halen, Poison, and Extreme. In early 1991, Alice in Chains landed the opening slot for the Clash of the Titans tour with Anthrax, Megadeth, and Slayer, exposing the band to a wide metal audience but receiving mainly poor reception. Alice in Chains was nominated for a Best Hard Rock Performance Grammy Award in 1992 for Man in the Box, but lost to Van Halen for their 1991 album For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge. Following the tour, Alice in Chains entered the studio to record demos for its next album, but ended up recording 5 acoustic songs instead. While in the studio, drummer Sean Kinney had a dream about making an EP called Sap. The band decided not to mess with fate, and on March 21, 1992, Alice in Chains released their second EP, Sap. The EP was released while Nirvana's Nevermind was at the top of the Billboard 200 charts, resulting in a rising popularity of Seattle-based bands, and of the term grunge music. Sap was certified gold within 2 weeks. The EP features guest vocals by Ann Wilson from the band Heart, who joined Staley and Cantrell for the choruses of Brother, Am I Inside, and Love Song. The EP also features Mark Arm of Mudhoney and Chris Cornell of Soundgarden, who appeared together on the song Right Turn, credited to Alice Mudgarden in the liner notes. In 1992, Alice in Chains appeared in the Cameron Crowe film Singles, performing as a bar band. The band also contributed the song Would to the film's soundtrack, whose video received an award for Best Video from a Film at the 1993 MTV Video Music Awards. Dirt. In March 1992, the band returned to the studio. With new songs written primarily on the road, the material has an overall darker feel than Facelift, with 6 of the album's 13 songs dealing with the subject of addiction. We did a lot of soul-searching on this album. There's a lot of intense feelings. Cantrell said, we deal with our daily demons through music. All of the poison that builds up during the day we cleanse when we play. On September 29, 1992, Alice in Chains released its second album, Dirt. The album peaked at number 6 on the Billboard 200 and since its release has been certified quadruple platinum by the RIAA, making Dirt the band's highest-selling album to date. The album was a critical success, with Steve Huey of Allmusic praising the album as a major artistic statement, and the closest they ever came to recording a flat-out masterpiece. Chris Gill of Guitar World called Dirt huge and foreboding, yet eerie and intimate, and sublimely dark and brutally honest. Dirt spawned 5 top 30 singles, Wood, Rooster, Them Bones, Angry Chair, and Down in a Hole, and remained on the charts for nearly 2 years. Alice in Chains was added as openers to Ozzy Osbourne's No More Tears tour. Days before the tour began, Layne Staley broke his foot in an ATV accident, forcing him to use crutches on stage. While on tour, Starr left the band and was replaced by former Ozzy Osbourne bassist Mike Inez. In 1993, the band recorded 2 songs with Inez, What the Hell Have I, and A Little Bitter, for the Last Action Hero soundtrack. During the summer of 1993, Alice in Chains toured with the alternative music festival Lollapalooza, their last major tour with Staley. Jar of Flies. Following Alice in Chains' extensive 1993 world tour, Staley said the band just wanted to go into the studio for a few days with our acoustic guitars and see what happened. We never really planned on the music we made at that time to be released. But the record label heard it and they really liked it. For us, it was just the experience of 4 guys getting together in the studio and making some music. Columbia Records released Alice in Chains' second acoustic-based EP, Jar of Flies, on January 25, 1994. Written and recorded in 1 week, Jar of Flies debuted at number 1 on the Billboard 200, becoming the first ever EP Euro, and first Alice in Chains release Euro to top the charts. Paul Evans of Rolling Stone called the EP darkly gorgeous, and Steve Huey stated Jar of Flies is a low-key stunner, achingly gorgeous and harrowingly sorrowful all at once. Jar of Flies features Alice in Chains' first number 1 single on the mainstream rock charts, No Excuses. The second single, I Stay Away, reached number 10 on the mainstream rock charts, while the final single Don't Follow, reached number 25. After the release of Jar of Flies, Staley entered rehab for heroin addiction. The band was scheduled to tour during the summer of 1994 with Metallica, Suicidal Tendencies, Danzig, and Fight, but while in rehearsal for the tour, Staley began using heroin again. Staley's condition prompted the other band members to cancel all scheduled dates 1 day before the start of the tour, putting the band on hiatus. Alice in Chains was replaced by Candlebox on the tour. Alice in Chains. While Alice in Chains was inactive during 1995, Staley joined the grunge supergroup Mad Season, which also featured Pearl Jam guitarist Mike McCready, bassist John Baker Saunders from the Walkabouts, and Screaming Trees drummer Barrett Martin. Mad Season released 1 album, Above, for which Staley provided lead vocals and the album artwork. The album spawned a number 2 single, River of Deceit, as well as a home video release of Live at the Mall. In April 1995, Alice in Chains entered Bad Animals Studio in Seattle with producer Toby Wright, who had previously worked with Corrosion of Conformity and Slayer. While in the studio, an inferior version of the song Grind was leaked to radio, and received major airplay. On October 6, 1995, the band released the studio version of the song to radio via satellite uplink. On November 7, 1995, Columbia Records released the eponymous album, Alice in Chains, which debuted at number 1 on the Billboard 200 and has since been certified double platinum. Of the album's 4 singles, Grind, Again, Over Now, and Heaven Beside You, 3 feature Cantrell on lead vocals. John Wiederhorn of Rolling Stone called the album liberating and enlightening. The songs achieve a startling, staggering and palpable impact. The song Got Me Wrong unexpectedly charted 3 years after its release on the SAP EP. The song was re-released as a single on the soundtrack for the independent film Clerks in 1995, reaching number 7 on the mainstream rock tracks chart. The band opted not to tour in support of Alice in Chains, adding to the rumors of drug abuse. Alice in Chains resurfaced on April 10, 1996, to perform their first concert in 3 years for MTV Unplugged, a program featuring all acoustic set lists. The performance featured some of the band's highest charting singles, including Down in a Hole, Heaven Beside You, and Wood. And introduced a new song, Killer Is Me. The show marked Alice in Chains' only appearance as a 5-piece band, adding second guitarist Scott Olson. A live album of the performance was released in July 1996, debuting at number 3 on the Billboard 200, and was accompanied by a home video release, both of which received platinum certification by the RIAA. Alice in Chains performed 4 shows supporting the reunited original Kiss lineup, including the final live appearance of Layne Staley on July 3, 1996, in Kansas City, Missouri. Hiatus and the death of Layne Staley. Although Alice in Chains never officially disbanded, Staley became a recluse, rarely leaving his Seattle condominium following the death in 1996 of his ex-fiancée copyright Eda Mae Parrott due to bacterial endocarditis. "Drugs worked for me for years," Staley told Rolling Stone in 1996, "and now they're turning against me, now I'm walking through hell." Unable to continue with new Alice in Chains material, Cantrell released his first solo album, Boggy Depot, in 1998, also featuring Sean Kinney and Mike Inez. In 1998, Staley reunited with Alice in Chains to record two new songs, Get Born Again, and Died. Originally written for Cantrell's solo album, the songs were released in the fall of 1999 on the box set, Music Bank. The set contains 48 songs, including rarities, demos, and previous album tracks. The band also released a 15-track compilation titled Nothing Safe, Best of the Box, serving as a sampler for Music Bank, as well as the band's first compilation album. A live album, simply titled Live, released on December 5, 2000. And a second compilation, titled Greatest Hits in 2001. By 2002, Cantrell had finished work on his second solo album, Degradation Trip. Written in 1998, the album's lyrical content focused heavily on what Cantrell regarded as the demise of Alice in Chains, which still remained evident as the album approached its June 2002 release. However, in March that year, Cantrell commented, "We're all still around, so it's possible, Alice in Chains could all do something someday, and I fully hope someday we will." After a decade of battling drug addiction, Layne Staley was found dead in his condominium on April 19, 2002. His mother and stepfather became alarmed when accountants noticed that money was no longer being withdrawn from his accounts. With assistance from the police, they broke into his condo and made the discovery. An autopsy revealed Staley had died from a mixture of heroin and cocaine. His friends speculate that in addition to drugs, he may have contracted an illness that his body could not fight off, due to a compromised immune system. His body was discovered 2 weeks after his death. In his last interview, given months before his death, Staley admitted, "I know I'm near death, I did crack and heroin for years. I never wanted to end my life this way." Cantrell dedicated his 2002 solo album, released 2 months after Staley's death, to his memory. Reunion shows. In 2005, Jerry Cantrell, Mike Inez, and Sean Kinney reunited to perform a benefit concert in Seattle for victims of the tsunami disaster that struck South Asia in 2004. The band featured Damage Plan vocalist Pat Lachman, as well as other special guests including Maynard James Keenan of Tool and Ann Wilson of Heart. On March 10, 2006, the surviving members performed at VH1's Decades Rock Live concert, honoring fellow Seattle musicians Ann and Nancy Wilson of Heart. They played Wood with vocalist Phil Anselmo of Pantera and Down and guitarist Duff McKagan of Guns N' Roses and Velvet Revolver. Then they played Rooster with Comes with the Fall vocalist William Duvall and Ann Wilson. The band followed the concert with a short United States club tour, several festival dates in Europe, and a brief tour in Japan. To coincide with the band's reunion, Sony Music released the long-delayed third Alice in Chains compilation, The Essential Alice in Chains, a double album that includes 28 songs. Duvall joined Alice in Chains as lead singer during the band's reunion concerts. Duff McKagan again joined the band for the reunion tour, playing rhythm guitar on selected songs. Before the tour, Kinney mentioned in an interview that he would be interested in writing new material, but not as Alice in Chains. However, AliceInChains.com reported that the band had begun writing new material, with Duvall on lead vocals. Black Gives Way to Blue, Blabbermouth.net reported in September 2008 that Alice in Chains would enter the studio that October to begin recording a new album for a summer 2009 release. In October 2008, Alice in Chains began recording its fourth studio album at the Foo Fighters Studio 606 in Los Angeles with producer Nick Raskulinecz. At the Revolver Golden God Awards, Jerry Cantrell said that the group had finished recording in March 2009 and were mixing the album for a September release. In April 2009, it was reported that the new Alice in Chains album would be released by Virgin EMI, making it the band's first label change in its 20-plus year career. On June 11, 2009, Blabbermouth.net reported that the new album would be titled Black Gives Way to Blue and was officially set to be released on September 29, 2009. On June 30, 2009, the song A Looking in View was released as the first single from the album. It was made available for a limited time as a free download through the official Alice in Chains website in early July. The music video for the song debuted via the official website on July 7, 2009. The second single, Check My Brain, was released to radio stations on August 14, 2009 and was made available for purchase on August 17, 2009. In addition, it was announced that Elton John appears on the album's title track. In September 2008, it was announced that Alice in Chains would headline Australia's Soundwave Festival in 2009, alongside 9 Inch Nails and Lamb of God. In February 2009, it was also announced that Alice in Chains would play at the 3rd annual Rock on the Range Festival. On August 1, 2009, Alice in Chains performed, along with Mastodon, Avenged Sevenfold, and Glider, at Marlay Park, Dublin as direct support to Metallica. The band made an appearance on Late Olivia with Jools Holland on November 10, 2009, performing Lesson Learned, Black Gives Way to Blue, and Check My Brain as the final performance of the episode. To coincide with the band's European tour, Alice in Chains released its next single, Your Decision, on November 16 in the UK and on December 1 in the US. The fourth single from the album was Lesson Learned, and was released to rock radio in mid-June. On May 18, 2010, Black Gives Way to Blue was certified gold by the RIAA for shipments of over 500,000 copies. Along with Mastodon and Deftones, Alice in Chains toured the United States and Canada in late 2010 on the Black Diamond Sky Tour, an amalgam of the three bands' latest album titles. Future plans and the death of Mike Starr. In April 2010, Cantrell revealed to MTV News that Alice in Chains was contemplating making a fifth studio album in the foreseeable future. He explained, "There are thoughts. We'll see how far we get. Staying in the moment is a good way to live and we certainly hope that it happens. I don't see any reason why it wouldn't happen." Duvall also commented on the next album and Alice in Chains' future, "We've got a lot of water to sail before we do that. There's a lot of shows. But yeah, generally speaking, yeah, we're excited about the future. I don't anticipate some long layoff." Duvall revealed in September 2010 that Alice in Chains had not begun writing their next album yet, but there's plenty of riffs flying around. He added, "That was the case when we first started back up. We would just stockpile these fragments, and then sometime later we would sift through the mountain of stuff, and that's what became Black Gives Way to Blue. The same thing has been happening since we've been touring Black Gives Way to Blue, so it would be only natural to at some point say, hey, we've got a lot of stuff. Let's sift through and see what we've got this time." Duvall also mentioned that it was possible that the new album would feature songs that were written for Black Gives Way to Blue. On March 8, 2011, former Alice in Chains bassist Mike Starr was found dead at his home in Salt Lake City. Police told Reuters they were called to Starr's home at 1:42 p.m. and found his body. Starr was 44. Reports later surfaced that Starr's roommate had seen him mixing methadone and anxiety medication hours before he was found dead. Later reports indicated Starr's death may have been linked to two different types of antidepressants prescribed to him by his doctor. A public memorial was held for Starr at the Seattle Center's International Fountain on March 20, 2011. A private memorial was also held, which Jerry Cantrell and Sean Kinney attended according to Mike Inez. The Devil Put Dinosaurs Here. On March 21, 2011, Alice in Chains announced that they were working on a fifth studio album, and both Cantrell and Inez later made statements that they had begun the recording process. The album was expected to be finished by summer of 2012 and released by the end of 2012 or beginning of 2013. While Alice in Chains were writing for the album in 2011, Cantrell required surgery, which delayed recording the new material. In an interview published in May 2012, Cantrell explained, "The thing that set me back is I had some bone spurs and cartilage issues in my shoulders. I had the same issue in the other shoulder about 6 years ago, so I've had them both done now. It's a repetitive motion injury from playing." In December 2012, Cantrell confirmed that the new album was completed. The first single from the album, Hollow, debuted online on December 18, and was available for digital download in January 2013, with an official music video released. On February 13, 2013, Alice in Chains posted on Facebook that their new album title would be an anagram of the letters HVLENTPSUSDAHIEOEDTIUR. The next day they announced that the new album would be called The Devil Put Dinosaurs Here, which was released on May 28, 2013. The Devil Put Dinosaurs Here debuted at number 2 on the Billboard 200. Asked in September 2013 if Alice in Chains would make another album, Cantrell replied, "It'll be a while. It's been 4 years since we put the last one out, but at least it's not the gap that was between the last one, so that's about right, about 3 to 4 years." Cantrell later stated that Alice in Chains will begin work on their 6th studio album after the end of the Devil Put Dinosaurs Here tour. The band embarked on a US tour in the spring of 2014, with dates in Canada, Europe, and the US scheduled for the summer. They are also working on a video for Phantom Limb, directed by Rob Ashobo, who directed the videos for Hollow and Stone. Musical style: although Alice in Chains has been labeled grunge by the mainstream media, Jerry Cantrell identifies the band as primarily heavy metal. He told Guitar World in 1996, "We're a lot of different things. I don't quite know what the mixture is, but there's definitely metal, blues, rock and roll, maybe a touch of punk. The metal part will never leave, and I never want it to." The Edmonton Journal has stated, "Living and playing in Seattle might have got them the grunge tag, but they've always pretty much been a classic metal band to the core." Over the course of their career, the band's sound has also been described as alternative metal, sludge metal, doom metal, dark metal, drone rock, hard rock, and alternative rock. Regarding the band's constant categorization by the media, Cantrell stated, "When we first came out we were metal. Then we started being called alternative metal. Then grunge came out and then we were hard rock. And now, since we've started doing this again, I've seen us listed as hard rock, alternative metal and just straight metal. I walked into an HMV the other day to check out the placement and see what's in, and they've got us relegated back into the metal section. Right back where we started." According to Mike Inez, they were always the metal stepchildren of the Seattle scene. Jerry Cantrell's guitar style combines pummeling riffs and expansive guitar textures to create slow, brooding minor key grinds. He is also recognized for his natural ability to blend acoustic and electric guitars. While down-tuned, distorted guitars mixed with Staley's distinctive snarl to a scream vocals appealed to heavy metal fans, the band also had a sense of melody that was undeniable, which introduced Alice in Chains to a much wider audience outside of the heavy metal underground. According to Stephen Thomas Iliwine of AllMusic, Alice in Chains' sound is a Black Sabbath-style riffing and an unconventional vocal style. The band has been described by Iliwine as hard enough for metal fans, yet their dark subject matter and punky attack placed them among the front ranks of the Seattle-based grunge bands. 3 of the band's releases feature acoustic music, and while the band initially kept these releases separate, Alice in Chains' self-titled album combined the styles to form a bleak, nihilistic sound that balanced grinding hard rock with subtly textured acoustic numbers. Alice in Chains is also noted for the unique vocal harmonies of Staley and Cantrell, which included overlapping passages, dual lead vocals, and trademark harmonies typically separated by a major third. Alyssa Burrows said the band's distinctive sound came from Staley's vocal style and his lyrics dealing with personal struggles and addiction. Staley's songs were often considered dark, with themes such as drug abuse, depression, and suicide, while Cantrell's lyrics often dealt with personal relationships. Legacy: Alice in Chains has sold more than 14 million albums in the United States, Around 25 million worldwide, released 2 number-1 albums, had 21 top 40 singles, and has received 8 Grammy nominations. The band was ranked number 34 on VH1's 100 Greatest Artists of Hard Rock. Alice in Chains was named 15th Greatest Live Band by Hit Parader, with vocalist Layne Staley placing as 27th Greatest Heavy Metal Vocalist of all time. The band's second album, Dirt, was named 5th Best Album in the Last 2 Decades by Close Up magazine. In August 2009, Alice in Chains won the Kerrang! Icon Award. Alice in Chains has had a large impact on many bands, such as Godsmack, who, according to John Widerhorn of MTV, have sonically followed Alice in Chains' lead while adding their own distinctive edge. Godsmack singer and founder Sully Erna has also cited Layne Staley as his primary influence. Staind has covered Alice in Chains' song Nutshell Live, which appears on the compilation The Singles, 1996-2006, and also wrote a song entitled Layne, dedicated to Staley, on the album 14 Shades of Grey. 3 Days Grace also performs a cover of Rooster, which can be seen on the DVD Live at the Palace. Other bands that have been inspired by Alice in Chains include Creed, Nickelback, Taproot, Stone Sour, Puddle of Mud, Queens of the Stone Age, A Pale Horse Named Death, Godsmack, Smile Empty Soul, Avenged Sevenfold, Cold, Hurt, Incubus, Mudvayne, 10 Years, Breaking Benjamin, Days of the New, and Tantric. Metallica said they have always wanted to tour with the band, citing Alice in Chains as a major inspiration for their 2008 release, Death Magnetic. Metallica also recorded Rebel of Babylon as a tribute to Layne Staley, but the song was left off Death Magnetic due to manufacturing restrictions and then later released on a 4-song EP, Beyond Magnetic. Alice in Chains has also had a significant influence on modern heavy metal. Their songs were covered by various metal bands such as Opeth, Dream Theater, Secrets of the Moon, Suicide Silence, and Grave. Pantera and Damageplan guitarist Dimebag Darrell had expressed his admiration for Jerry Cantrell's guitar work in an interview for Guitar International, saying that the layering and the honest feel that Jerry Cantrell gets on Alice in Chains' Dirt record is worth a lot more than someone who plays 5 million notes. Anders Rydder, copyright N of Swedish melodic death metal band In Flames, cited Layne Staley as an inspiration for his vocals on the band's later albums. In addition to fellow musicians, the band has also received praise from critics, with Steve Huey of AllMusic calling them one of the best metal bands of the 90s upon reviewing the 1999 compilation Nothing Safe. Personnel. Discography. Facelift, Dirt, Alice in Chains, Black Gives Way to Blue, The Devil Put Dinosaurs Here. Awards and nominations. Alice in Chains has received 9 Grammy nominations. Their first nomination was for the song Man in the Box, nominated for Best Hard Rock Performance in 1992. The album Dirt was nominated in the same category in 1993. 6 more songs were nominated between 1995 and 2011, and the album The Devil Put Dinosaurs Here was nominated for Best Engineered Album, Non-Classical in 2014. The music video for the song Would. Alice in Chains' contribution to the 1992 film, Singles, won the award for Best Video from a Film at the 1993 MTV Video Music Awards. In 2009 they won the Kerrang! Icon Award, and in 2010 they won the Revolver Golden Gods Award for Black Gives Way to Blue. American Music Awards. The American Music Awards is an annual awards ceremony created by Dick Clark in 1973. Grammy Awards. The Grammy Awards are awarded annually by the National Academy of Recording Arts and Sciences. MTV Video Music Awards. The MTV Video Music Awards is an annual awards ceremony established in 1984 by MTV. References. External links, quotations related to Alice in Chains at Wikiquote, media related to Alice in Chains at Wikimedia Commons, official website, VH1 Classic, Alice in Chains.